Hello, and thank you to everyone that took the time to watch this presentation. So a little bit about me. My name is Chris Zavadil. I'm a student at Southern New Hampshire University. I was a medic in the Army for some years. I have two kids. I've been in sales for a long time. The role that we're going to be investigating today is the programmer of a game development team. It's a specialization in that field. My goal is to be a video game developer, programmer. So, what we're going to look at today is some areas of discussion in that topic. The first one being what is the programmer? What does the programmer do? They are essentially what makes the game special and innovative. They make new functions and they create complex algorithms from entire game engines all the way to establishing dynamic meshes that react to a player character's input. And when it comes to being a game programmer, you need to have some serious skill. Innovative new games don't come from keyboard jockeys. These are the skills and abilities that I feel are most important to be a programmer on a game development team. I categorize them into soft skills, which are just general abilities, and more specific technical skills. Problem solving is the first one up. This is being able to look at a problem and find a solution to it. When it comes to programming, you run into a lot of snags. Being able to untangle the wires is an important part of the job. Organization is next. It's important in everyday life to keep things in the right order, but more so when it comes to being a developer. If code is poorly organized or commented or file structure is not accurately addressed, it can be disastrous. Now we come to the technical skills, and the most obvious one, game programmer has to be able to write some scripts. There's no cookie cutter dev job here, however, and you need to be able to bring cutting edge innovation to the code in order to make an experience that'll have your audience wanting to come back for more and feeling that there's something unique about the game. Next in our technical skills, we have testing and debugging. For anyone not familiar with writing code, this is what is done when a program isn't running as it should. The programmer then has to go back into the code and hunt down the bugs, fix them, and then test again. This is generally a pretty circular process. Fixing issues before a game is released, though, can be the difference between an unplayable flop and a AAA immersive experience. Finally, for the necessary skills to be a programmer on a game development team, we have to have math, or mathematics. Objects bump into each other in games, things spin around. Sometimes a laser goes from the barrel of a gun to hit a wall or another character. All of these interactions are done through mathematical evaluations. The use of vector math, linear algebra, quaternarian calculations, and calculus are everyday occurrences. The programmer needs to be well versed in mathematics, otherwise, the in game bullet that was meant to hit the terrorist might come down on the civilian's head, regardless of the player's accuracy. And what does the industry have to say about that? How do we compare? So it looks like a lot of stuff is pretty much the same. This is an actual live job posting that's up right now. Most required skills are similar to the ones that we just discussed, with the additional developing on consoles and teamwork, which obviously you got to admit are pretty good ones, so we definitely need those as well. And then next up, what's the reason for this presentation? As you might have guessed, I'm very interested in becoming a programmer on a game development team. I broke this decision into school-related experiences that brought me that way, and those in my life outside of coursework. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So I am a student at Southern New Hampshire University. The biggest factor is my education. I'm in my final semester of school for my bachelor's of computer science and game design. The coursework is giving me a ton of exposure to all the components of the game design process, good and bad. So let's start with the bad. And I'm really glad that I took some of the class I did because it brought a true realization that I have no interest in the fields as they stand currently. The first one being graphics courses. Having skills in graphic design can come in useful at any time. I got a lot out of the class I took. But technology is really moving fast with AI assisted design. Features like Celeste and Mask and Photoshop have eliminated entire employment sectors. Um, Next up, level design. And level design can be a lot of fun, like a lot of fun. The issue is that it's a huge time drag. I spent about 37 hours developing an island with dynamic landscape features. It was amazing. The end product didn't really satisfy me though, as much as writing a new function or solving a complex problem. Then we have modeling, or more specifically in my coursework, 3D modeling and animation. I enjoyed doing this as well. Um, but when it comes to making photorealistic static meshes, I'm kind of a perfectionist. I want the curves of the mesh to align perfectly with the shading of the normal map while maintaining as low a number of polygons as possible to ensure the object isn't a drain on the GPU. And this kind of behavior has shown me that I'm a slow modeler. As with anything, it's a skill. I could continue working to hone, and there would definitely be improvements. But you only live once, as they say, and I don't have enough interest to devote the necessary energies in that. And then this will bring us to the good stuff. The good. Um, or at least school based educational courses that I have enjoyed the most. With game design instruction, there was a lot of the lower level elements included too. Like those are things I mentioned previously, but I was mainly viewing the game as a whole while planning and making decisions that had a tremendous impact on the output of the game I was developing. I really enjoyed this type of work, and it's something that can be directly tied into programming positions in a game development team. As a team solo developer, or even on a much larger team as a senior member, you will have a lot of input when it comes to high level decisions in the game development process. The next thing for me was the programming courses. General programming as well as the video game development programming classes. Writing a program that does what it's intended to do is one of the best feelings in the world. This is especially true when you're approaching a problem with limited information. The quest is remarkable. I found this love of programming during my schooling, and it has even developed me more as an individual. Outside of these school experiences, I've gained influence for my choice based on my experience growing up with my dad as a programmer. I've also taken additional online game programming courses outside of school and interacted with active members of the gaming community. All these things have had an influence on me. And we'll start with the first one. When I was growing up, my dad was a software developer. He always had a steady job, worked normal hours, and seemed to enjoy what he did. In the past 4 years, he moved to a small town where there are very few programming jobs. To stay active, he took on a role. After several months of working there, we talked about how it was going for him. He said that it was just a job and not an adventure. As a game development programmer, there's always more exploration and opportunity. I wanted a career that I can walk into happy every day. Then we have the courses I've taken outside of school. The two most influential for me were C++ development boot camps for Unreal Engine. Um, my desire to continue learning so that I can be at the highest level of innovation is a real motivator. And through these courses, I learned that I can sit and program for days and enjoy it more than even going outside. And then we have the game development community, which is strong. I've had many interactions with employed members of the sector that'll stick with me through my career. Those of most note are the Oculus Developers Forum, VRUE4.com, and Gamasutra. My passion in gaming and is virtual reality, and my drive for programming has been to stick with that desire. Oculus has put out amazing products that developers can engage with, and they also have a large resource for the community in their documentation. This isn't always going to be your best resource, however, because it doesn't have every answer. That's where the developers forum comes in handy. In most cases, if you're running into an issue, someone has already been there and already solved it. If you have a new inquiry or a bug, you can just post it, and the active members are always there to help. The next item ties into that as well for virtual reality. It's VR UE4, or as it's more commonly known, the VR expansion. It started as a plugin to help people with their virtual reality projects in Unreal Engine. It was actually created by a solar programmer, and he made it free. This kind of community is the community I want to be a part of. A group of engineers developing tools to help other creatives deploy experiences that'll be enjoyed for years to come. The next category is kind of a cheat group, as I was directed by the professor to check out Gama Sutra. It's more a general gaming community resource with more information than someone can consume in a lifetime. The conglomeration of knowledge ensures that the community stays informed of new trends, as well as working out difficult problems together. Through this group, I was able to get a question about the best game engine to study if I wanted to work in virtual reality. A lot of the time in communication, you're actually speaking with someone who works in the gaming community, so their words do hold a lot of weight. And at this point, we know the job I want, we know why. So next we're going to look at the skills I currently have, some gaps in those skills, where I'm now and where I want to be, as well as how I'm actively working to solidify my expertise. As we discussed previously, if you want to be a game developer, you gotta have certain skills. Now we're gonna look where I fit into that. The first one we have is problem solving. When it comes to problem solving, I have a lifetime of experience. I was in sales for 10 years, and when you get good at it, you realize that every sales solution is just solving a problem. In school, I've worked through difficult and complex problems all the way to the level of heuristics and non-deterministic mapping. One area that I found that I may need some improvement in this area is with my steps to solve problems. A lot of the time I find myself piecing together solutions bit by bit. Since the recognition of this, it has been my goal to take a step back and look at the problem as a whole before starting to pull at individual threads. Next we got organization skills. In life I do keep a clean, organized home. My schooling has also taught me how to maintain organized files, code, as well as commenting. This was especially enforced during my HTML courses, as having well-organized website files is essential. With C++, I've noticed that the majority of the time, when I create new functions, I do leave the necessary information in the H file as it stands inside the C++ file. This doesn't have any negative effect on the program output, but when it comes to organization, when a new developer reviews someone's code, it's best to have it in a logical order. While considering this delinquency, I came across an article on the Gama Sutra gaming community. A developer had also created a game, and a solo developer had created a game and then handed it off to a larger company. They were going to maintain it from there, essentially. When he went to visit and check out the state of the game, he had some time to speak with programmers on the project. They couldn't express enough how the organization of the game code, along with the commenting, had saved them massive, immense amounts of time and effort. After reading that, I made it my standard to organize function and variable groupings in my .h file before initiating any sort of actual code implementation. And then we've got writing code. With writing code, I've learned a ton. I've worked in multiple IDEs. I've developed in a lot of different languages. Being interested in virtual reality, though, I do follow the trends. Unity has more support for virtual reality development than Unreal Engine. Unity's main programming language is C#. I have taken many in and out of school classes for C++ development and Unreal Engine, but I haven't even dipped my feet into Unity. To correct this lack of knowledge, I've signed up for a Udemy development boot camp online, and upon completion, I'll also have a certificate for the class. Next, we have testing and debugging, and when it comes to testing and debugging, it's been one of my favorite pursuits of this entire adventure. Whether it be working with my own code or taking pre-scripted non-operational programs and making them function, I always tend to have a good time. An area for improvement I'm working on here, though, is the use of internal debugging tools that are included in the IDEs. Most of the debugging I've done manually, but even basic programs have debugging assistance. For that reason, I've started to dig more into the visual documentation on Visual Studio documentation, so I can fully encompass the knowledge required to break down the big problems. And finally, we have mathematics. This is probably my lowest level skill out of the bunch. I have general understanding of the majority of the concepts, but I haven't worked with them to the point of repetition where I can easily pull the formulas from memory. Generally, I have to go back, research operations before I implement them. As time goes on, these concepts will become second nature. But as an additional boost to that long-term potentiality, I've actually signed up for a Khan Academy successive mathematical class to continue my education in that regard. And finally, I want to thank you today, whether you're considering me for employment, watching this video for fun, or grading me on my efforts. I appreciate you taking the time today. This project has helped me to further understand and hone my skills, and the proof of concept to follow will show these changes in action.